Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss Christian values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society at large. I'm Father George Ehusani. Today we are going to discuss the challenge of trauma in our society, widespread trauma in our society, and the challenge of trauma healing. So we will discuss traumas, trauma awareness, and the challenge of bringing help to people who are traumatized. I have with me in the studio Professor Andrew Zamani. Professor Zamani, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Father.
Professor Andrew Zamani is the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Nasarawa State University. Before he got to the university, the Nasarawa State University, had worked as the clinical psychologist at the Abuja University Teaching Hospital. But before then also at the Jos University Teaching Hospital, he has worked as clinical psychologist. So Professor Zamani has been in practice, clinical practice, before he got into the classroom to teach psychology or clinical psychology. You are all aware of the various incidences of trauma in our society, or trauma-causing events in our society. Just any day you take the newspapers, you watch TV, a tanker full of PMS, petrol, ran into a marketplace, killing 100 people. Terrible. Now, those 100 people are not just, it is not just figures. They are fathers of families, mothers of children, brothers and sisters, and children of parents. So, people have been thrown into mourning, and these are traumatic events for many people. You hear that some policeman or a group of policemen tortured somebody, some person that must have committed some minor malfeasance, tortured, seriously tortured in the police station. Or you hear of, as we have had in this country, plane crash with 100 people killed. Somebody who saw his wife or her husband to the airport and said bye-bye, and then in the next hour supposed to arrive in Lagos, then there's a plane crash. We have had a number of such. We have had, in recent years, in the last 6 years, we have had the challenge of bombing, Boko Haram insurgency. The entire Northeast has been a war zone in the last 6 years. We have lost almost 25,000 people, and we have hundreds and hundreds of people, if not thousands, that are missing. So people will wake up one day and their village has been sacked, schools are burnt, the children killed. We still have the story of the Chibok girls, over 200 girls that got missing, and till today they are not found. The parents of these girls, some of them have died of frustration and agony. Others are struggling with one disease or the other on account of the trauma they have experienced after the capture of those, kidnap of those girls. We have numerous, in this country it happens on a daily basis. You have a luxurious bus traveling from Lagos to Onitsha, and then there's an accident and 40 people died. And then you have all kinds of things. The whole thing is, how is Nigeria coping with these multiple traumas? How are people coping? I'm not aware, you will enlighten us, what are the structures in place to help? You did say that you worked in the psychology department, clinical psychology department of 2 teaching hospitals. So it means there is some help available, but these are teaching hospitals. What about federal medical centers? What about state hospitals? What about general hospitals in local government areas? Do they have psychologists? How are traumatized people in Nigeria being helped? Prof.
Well, thank you, Father George. You've just presented a very graphic picture of trauma in Nigeria. The incidence is quite high as far as the events are concerned, but unfortunately we do not have data to show how many people are really affected with these enormous traumatic events that occur on a daily basis. The second tragedy about our society is the fact that we have many people living with residual devastation. Things happen, and they are not presented to relevant places to seek help, or help is not readily available to them because of the dearth of structures that exist in the country for such. Then the third major issue that saddens me is that these people with unprocessed residual devastation, harbor these things for such a very long time that they become very dangerous elements in society.
So the victims themselves turn out to become...
Yes, they could be culprits of violence eventually. That is, if we do not lose them, we don't lose them to mental disability. To answer your question, there are many teaching hospitals now in Nigeria. We have many specialist hospitals in Nigeria, and we also now have many federal medical centers in Nigeria. But the health structure in Nigeria is not such that is friendly to the presence of psychologists. And so we have had many teaching hospitals, many directors of federal medical centers, many medical superintendents actively rejecting psychologists
in their
hospitals. It is really very, very sad. And so the many people that we have trained, are left with no option but to seek employment in research institutes or, in universities.
I am hearing this for the first time.
Whereas their first love is to render service. You have to believe me, because I'm the president of the Nigerian Psychological Association.
I forgot to introduce
yes.
So you are the president. Professor Zamani is the president of the Nigerian Psychological Association. So we're actually talking to the right person.
Exactly. So this is something that really burns my heart, that we have such a very large pool of resources to help people that suffer the consequences of the many traumatic events that you have mentioned, and yet we do not have the sensibility in our basic public service structure.
I am shocked to
entertain it.
I'm shocked to hear that
yes.
you use the word actively reject.
Yes.
Will that be ignorance? Because all over the world now, I mean, I had my graduate studies nearly 30 years ago. And when I was doing my graduate studies, there was already talk about integrated health care, where the doctor goes for his round in the morning, the medical doctor, the psychologist, the social worker, and the pastor or imam, they go together for their rounds each day.
Yes.
So integrated health delivery.
Yes.
So that, for me, that is nearly 30 years ago that
yes.
I became aware of the importance of this.
Well, I would prefer to think so. I would truly prefer to think that it is ignorance that informs this kind of reaction. But come to think of it, how would that be excused of somebody who has gone to university, learnt medicine for 6 years, spent so many years to specialize, is a consultant, and added to that, the many years he has garnered in practice, qualifies him to administer healthcare
yes.
in a country as special as Nigeria. To say that, look, we don't really need you.
In a tertiary health facility?
Yes. I had to spend most of my life in these hospitals so as to open up the space for younger people. And now that, we have some so-called, I feel really very happy. I can now go around the world and to advocate for that to be made available to psychologists in Nigeria, for a space to be made available to psychologists in Nigeria. Right now, we are counting on people like you, the media, and our friends in the non-state agencies to lend a voice to the need for the space in our teaching hospitals, in our specialist hospital, in the federal medical centers, to be expanded for psychologists to come in to provide care. Now, the big embarrassment that we have gone through in the many years that this terrorism has taken over Nigeria is the fact that whenever foreigners come who are interested in providing psychosocial support, and they are looking for psychologists and other mental health workers to blend, they are told that there are no psychologists in Nigeria. Yes. I hope you recall one time that the governor of Borno State said he was going to import psychologists from America to come and he has not and provide services to traumatized victims of Boko Haram.
He has not taken census of the psychologists that are jobless in Nigeria.
So just the other day I took a census of qualified clinical psychologists in the Northeast zone. There are more than 30.
In the Northeast?
In the Northeast zone of Nigeria.
And
yes, Adamawa, including Bauchi. So they have the resources really to deal with the onslaught of Boko Haram.
These 30 psychologists are not yet
most of them are not engaged. They are not even engaged. Wow. And yet there's a teaching hospital in Maiduguri. There are federal medical centers in the other states. There are very many general hospitals in the other states. The International Red Cross Committee is in the Northeast Zone. UNFPA is in the Northeast Zone. UNICEF is in the Northeast Zone. And yet, the resources that they bring cannot be appropriated because our brothers in the health sector tell them there are no psychologists.
Well, if this is ignorance, you are the president of Nigerian Psychological Association. So what is the first step? You did say that there's some succor, but then on a wider level, what must we do so that people are aware of what I was aware of 30 years ago? So that people become aware today of the need to, when people are sick, they are not only sick physiologically, they are sick mentally, they are sick spiritually, they are sick psychologically, emotionally. Yes. There is more and more awareness today of the fact that human beings are a composite, integrated system, if you may put it that way.
That's right.
So how could a medical doctor not be aware of this? How could the administrator of a hospital not be aware of this? I got to know that there's a problem when you go to hospital, somebody goes for test, and they discover the person has cancer, and they just tell the person to his face, you have cancer. Whereas in civilized societies, and Nigeria is supposed to be a civilized society, nobody does that. You have finished the tests, and before the results of the test come out, there is a meeting, and the psychologist has to do his work with the patient to prepare the patient for whatever the outcome of the test will be.
That's right.
Somebody is going for surgery. The psychologist sits down with the person to prepare for what you may expect from this surgery and the inconveniences that will follow this surgery, to prepare the person. So, and so also for spiritual director. If the person is a Christian, a pastor, if the person is a Muslim, an imam, to prepare the person and pray with the person, so that it is not just a medical procedure.
No. There has to be a holistic approach.
A holistic approach.
The first step that we have taken is to insist that psychology should be listed in the Federal Civil Service scheme.
Okay. What does that mean?
Insist that we must have a scheme of service so that there can be a career line for psychology. We have been on this matter since 1992, and it is yet to see the light of day. The so-called that I was talking about is that a few years ago, starting from when, Jonathan's regime, the then Minister of Health was very friendly to our proposal, and encouraged us through his officials, and they took up our matter, and right now they have presented our issue to the office of the head of service, and hopefully we expect that psychology will be credentialed as a profession in the federal public service.
I'm surprised to hear that, and I'm sure a lot of viewers will be surprised to hear about this, because
Yes.
a developing country that sets up universities,
Yes.
and within those universities that sets up departments for psychology,
Yes.
and then clinical psychology.
Yes.
I thought that before you do that, you have a need. You think you have a need for that area of study.
Absolutely.
Before you establish them in universities.
Absolutely.
So does it mean that for some people we were just training psychologists, they are not needed in our health sector?
Father, you are opening another can of worms. You know that we're still trying to get our acts together with the issues of manpower planning in Nigeria. Right now, as we speak, I make bold to say that in the 51 years that psychology has been taught in Nigerian universities, we've turned out over 20,000 people.
20,000?
Over 20,000.
Graduates of psychology?
Graduates of psychology and in different cadres.
Yes.
But very few of them, less than 5% of them,
Are
engaged in
the profession.
Not even in the profession, in the civil service. That is to tell you that we have a lot of wasted manpower as far as
some of them
psychological sciences
some of them are
concerned.
in the banks working.
Many have gone to the banks. Many have joined the military, but are not operating in the military as psychologists. Many are now even religious practitioners, in the sense that they have turned themselves into pastors and so on and so forth.
Well, that is useful.
You get the point?
It's useful if a pastor...
But you see, we cannot check what they do,
okay.
As psychologists,
yes.
because they're in a different realm completely.
Okay.
My prayer and hope is that they are doing the needful for the people. And so we have a very troublesome situation with us right now. So that is the first step. The second step is to engage in aggressive advocacy. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to, commit some of these words in such a way that it pricks the conscience of somebody in authority, actually, to say, wait a minute, we need to do something about it. And we are not leaving any arm of the government to go free in this respect.
The advocacy has to be...
It has to be widespread. Right now, I have encouraged most of my people all over the country to dedicate the month of April, for this massive advocacy, because we do not have time to waste anymore. Our people are suffering. They need psychological services. We need to deploy these resources to the benefit of our people.
You see, not long ago,
yes,
there was this bomb blast in Europe.
Yes.
In Belgium.
Yes.
And within the hour, psychologists were mobilized.
Yes.
There was this plane crash in Russia.
Yes.
Also not long ago.
Yes.
Within the hour, and I'm saying within 1 hour, psychologists, along with the paramedics, psychologists were mobilized to the site, so that as they are rescuing the survivors, psychological care begins immediately.
Yes.
The immediate care. Then, of course, there will be the ongoing help for the survivors. I believe that what has been happening perhaps in this country is that foreign agencies come with funds to support, psychological care for survivors of our numerous, multiple traumas. And it is then we begin to look around, do we have psychologists?
Yeah, sure.
Whereas, as you said, we have 20,000 trained people. And if I remember, the University of Jos,
Yes.
Unsuka, University of Nigeria,
Yes. University of
Ibadan, and University of Lagos.
Over 40 universities in Nigeria.
Over 40 universities.
Yes.
Offering psychology.
Yes.
So we have no excuse.
Yes.
I think that perhaps the association that you had, the Nigerian Psychological Association, maybe in the past, they have failed to do what they needed to do in terms of advocacy.
Absolutely.
Perhaps the time has come
Absolutely.
now. And it is not something to be, left for the Nigerian Psychological Association, because we're all affected.
Absolutely.
If people are a composite unit of psychological, emotional, medical, physiological, and so on, and we're taking care of only one part, and we're neglecting the others, the emotional, the psychological, then it means we are not offering holistic care. It means that we are treating some symptoms, and the underlying causes we are neglecting. And so the problems will be revisited.
I agree with you, Father, on this last statement you made, because I indeed have, research evidence right now to show that if we do not handle these issues very well, we'll just be recycling our problems, especially violence.
Yes.
We just finished a study in Jos, and we discovered, and the study was on forgiveness readiness.
Okay.
Warring sectarian groups.
Yes.
in Jos.
Yes.
And we just tried to find out from them, how do you feel about this conflict that happened between you and the other group? Yes, and those who said they felt really very bad were asked for some further questions about, what losses did you incur? And of course they listed their losses, and then we asked, are you willing to forgive? We discovered that there is a high correlation between forgiveness readiness and the prevalence of PTSD in the groups. Those with higher forgiveness readiness tend to have lower PTSD.
PTSD means post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay.
And those with lower forgiveness readiness tended to have higher rates.
Of course.
Now that means that the turbulence in the minds of these people with PTSD
turn out to turbulence in society.
Yes. Is going to be spilled over
and explode.
It will explode in society, and we will have another cycle of violence. That is where the importance of psychology lies. If you help people who are devastated by stressors to come to terms with their stressors, to build resiliency, you will enhance their coping mechanisms. They will come out of it very easily. They will bounce back to life. They will spread love, and so on and so forth. And it is then that religious practitioners like you would really help them, to maintain the progress that has been achieved in terms of self-realization.
Yeah, talking about the correlation between the lack of forgiveness or shortfall, low level of forgiveness and high level of vengeance.
Yes.
If we may put it that way. Vengeance.
Also.
So society just visits upon itself the result of unhealed devastation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And perhaps we will need to have another segment of this discussion so as to now talk of actually trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, and how the traumatic events result in PTSD.
Okay.
And what minimum awareness, basic awareness that the society needs to have about these things, so that our society will not keep just this cycle of violence will not continue. So we would end this segment here, and we would have another segment to discuss trauma awareness and PTSD. You are the right person for this. I've been speaking with Professor Andrew Zamani, Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Nasarawa State University, and President of the Nigerian Psychological Association. And we've been speaking about the lack of awareness of the role of clinical psychologists in the structures of our medical services all over the country. Prof, it has been wonderful having you.
Thank you.
We shall meet to discuss further
Thank you.
these topics.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.